Get going, I do. Too much sometimes, believe me. But I was interested in what you had to say. How you would say it. Do you want me to tell you about my husband now? What happened to him? Why I'm sure he was innocent, too? I want to hear everything about your husband, Sampson said. Please. I believe Lawrence was murdered, she began. He was killed by the state of New Jersey. But somebody else wanted him dead. I want to know who murdered my husband, as much as you want to know who killed your friend, Ellis Cooper. Chapter 51. Sampson and Mrs. Billy Houston stopped and sat in the sand in front of a sprawling ocean house that must have had at least a dozen bedrooms. It was empty now, boarded up and shuttered, which seemed a monumental waste to Sampson. He knew people in D.C. who lived in abandoned tenements with no windows and no heat and no running water. He couldn't peel his eyes away. The house was 3 stories high, with wrap-around decks on the upper 2. A large sign posted on the dune near the house read, "These dunes are protected. Stay on walkway. $300 fine." These people were serious about their property, or its beauty, or both, he thought to himself. Billy Houston stared out at the ocean as she began to speak. "Let me tell you about the night the murder happened," she said. "I was a nurse at the community medical center in Toms River. I got off my shift at 11 and arrived home at about past. Lawrence almost always waited up for me. Usually we'd catch up on each other's day, sit on the couch, maybe watch a little TV together, mostly comedies. He was a big man like you, and always said he could carry me around in his pocket." Sampson didn't interrupt, just listened to her story take shape. "What I remember the most about that night was that it was so ordinary, Detective. Lawrence was watching the Steve Harvey show, and I leaned in and gave him a kiss. He sat me on his lap, and we talked for a while. Then I went in to change out of my work clothes. When I came out from the bedroom, I poured myself a glass of Shiraz and asked him if he wanted me to make popcorn. He didn't. He'd been watching his weight, which sometimes ballooned in the winter. He was in a playful mood, jokey, very relaxed. He wasn't tense, wasn't stressed in any way. I'll never forget that. The doorbell rang while I was pouring my glass of wine. I was up anyway, so I went to get it. The military police were there. They pushed past me into the house and arrested Lawrence for committing a horrible murder that night, just a few hours earlier. I remember looking at my husband and him looking at me. He shook his head in absolute amazement. No way he could have faked that look. Then he said to the police, "You officers are making a mistake. I'm a sergeant in the United States Army." That's when one of the cops knocked him down with his baton. Chapter 52. I was trying to forget that I was on a case, carrying around a nasty straw doll and lidless evil eye, in pursuit of killers, relentless as I had ever been. I walked into the lobby of the Wyndham Buttes Resort in Tempe, and there was Jamila. She had flown east from San Francisco to meet me. That had been our plan. She was wearing an orange silk blouse with a deeper orange sweater around her shoulders, slender gold bracelets, and tiny earrings. She looked just right for the Valley of the Sun, which is what I'd heard the metropolitan area of Phoenix, Scottsdale, Mesa, Chandler, and Tempe was called. "I suspect you already know this," I said as I walked over and gave her a big hug, "but you look absolutely beautiful. Took my breath away." "I did?" she asked, seeming surprised. "That's a nice way to start our weekend." "And I'm not the only one who thinks so. Everybody in the lobby is checking you out." She laughed. "Now I know you're putting me on." Jamila took my hand, and we walked across the lobby. Suddenly I stopped and spun her around into my arms. I looked at her face for a moment, then gave her a kiss. It was long and sweet because I'd been saving it up. "You look pretty good yourself," she said after the kiss. "You always look good. Tell you a secret. The first time I saw you in the San Francisco airport, you took my breath away. I laughed and rolled my eyes. Well, we better take this upstairs, get a room, before we get in trouble down here. Jamila leaned in and gave me another quick kiss. We could get in a whole lot of trouble. And then another kiss. I don't do things like this, Alex. What's happening to me? What has come over me? One more hug, and then we headed for the hotel elevators. Our room was on the top floor with a view of the Phoenix skyline and also of a waterfall cascading into a mountainside swimming pool. In the distance we could see jogging and hiking trails, tennis courts, and a golf course or two. I told Jamila that a nearby football field we could see must be Sun Devil Stadium. I think Arizona State plays there. I want to know all about Tempe and Arizona State football, Jamila said. But later on. Oh, all right. I touched my fingers to her blouse, which was brushed silk. This feels nice. It's supposed to. I slowly ran my hands over the shirt, Jamila's shoulders, the tips of her breasts, her stomach. I massaged her shoulders, and she leaned up against me and let out a long, yes, please, and thank you. It was like an impromptu dance, and neither of us knew exactly what was going to happen next. So nice to be back with her again. There's no hurry, she whispered. Is there? No, we have all the time in the world. You know, this is called entrapment in police circles. Yes, it is. I'm fully aware of that. It's also an ambush. Maybe you ought to just surrender. All right. I surrender, Inspector. There was nothing except the two of us. I had no idea where this was going, but I was learning to just go along, to enjoy each moment, not to worry too much about the destination. I hadn't been with anybody recently except that day with Jamila in Washington. Nobody else in a while. You have the softest touch of anyone, she whispered. Unbelievable. Don't stop. So do you. You seem surprised. A little bit, I admitted. It's probably because I saw your tough-as-nails side when we were working together. Is that a problem for you, my tough side? No, it isn't, I told you. I like your tough side, too, as long as you don't get too rough with me. Jam immediately pushed me back onto the bed, then fell on top of me. I kissed her cheeks, then her sweet lips. She smelled and tasted wonderful. I could feel the pulse under her skin. There's no hurry. I was a tomboy when I was a kid in Oakland. Baseball player. Fast-pitch softball, she said. I wanted my father and my brothers to approve of me. Did they? Oh, yeah. Are you kidding? I was all-state in baseball and track. Do they still approve? I think so. Yeah, they do. My pop's a little disappointed I'm not playing for the Giants, she said and laughed. He thinks I could give Barry Bonds a run. Jamila helped me with my pants while I unhooked her skirt. I shivered, couldn't control it. All the time in the world. Chapter 53. When he was finished with his interview of Mrs. Billy Houston, it was too late for Sampson to head back to Washington. Plus, he liked the atmosphere at the shore, so he had checked into Conover's Bay Head Inn, a bed and breakfast in town that Billy had recommended. He had just stepped into his room on the 3rd floor when the phone rang. He wondered who could be calling him here, at Conover's Bay Head Inn. Yeah, he spoke into the receiver. John Sampson. There was a short silence. This is Billy, Mrs. Houston. He sat down on the edge of the bed and found that he was surprised, but he was smiling. He definitely hadn't expected the call, hadn't expected to hear from her again. Well, hi. I haven't spoken to you in minutes. Did you forget to tell me something? No. Well, yes, I did, actually. Here you are, helping Lawrence, and I do absolutely nothing to make your visit more comfortable. Would you have dinner at the house tonight? I'm already cooking something, so please don't say no. What do you have to lose? I'm a good cook, by the way. Sampson hesitated and wasn't sure if this was such a good idea. It wasn't that he thought dinner with Billy Houston would be a chore. It was just, well, a potentially uncomfortable situation, maybe a conflict of interest. Still, the way she'd put it, what choice did he have? And what real harm could it do? That's a fine idea. I'd like to have dinner at the house. What time should I come by? Whatever suits you is fine. It's nothing fancy, Detective. I'll start up the grill as soon as you arrive. How about an hour? Is that all right? I'm John, by the way, not Detective. I think you told me that. You already know I'm Billy, and if you don't mind, I prefer that to Mrs. Houston. I'll see you in about an hour. She hung up, and Sampson held on to the receiver for another few seconds. Now that he thought about it, dinner with Billy Houston didn't seem like a bad idea. He was looking forward to it as he stepped out of his clothes and headed for the shower. Nothing fancy. Sounded pretty good. Chapter 54. Sampson picked up a small bouquet of flowers and a bottle of red at Central Market in Bayhead. As he got to the beach house, he wondered if he was overdoing it. Flowers? Wine? What is going on here? Was he feeling guilty about the fact that this woman's husband might have been murdered? Or that she was a widow before her time? Or did it have something to do with Ellis Cooper? Or was this just about Billy Houston and himself? He went round to the screen door that led into the kitchen of the beach house. He rapped his knuckles lightly on the wooden frame. "Hi, Billy," he called out. Billy? Is that how he should be talking to her? He had no idea why, but he was concerned for her safety. Why? No one would want to hurt Billy Houston now, would they? Still, he felt what he felt. The real killers were out there somewhere. Why not here in New Jersey? "Door's open. Come on in," she called. "I'm out here on the porch." He went in through the kitchen and saw her setting a small dining table on the open front porch facing the ocean. Beautiful spot for dinner. Adirondack chairs faced along the porch. A wicker rocker painted navy blue to match the shutters. He could see the ocean over the top of the dunes and the constantly waving seagrass. But his eyes went back to her. She had on a crisp white shirt with faded Levi's. No shoes again. Her hair was clipped back in a ponytail. She put on a little lipstick, just a touch. "Hi there. I thought we'd eat out here. It's not too cold for you, is it?" she asked with a wink. Sampson stepped out onto a spacious wooden porch. The breeze was coming off the ocean, but it was comfortable on the porch. He could smell the ocean, but also sea lavender and asters in the air. "It's just about perfect," he said. That was true. The temperature was just right, and so was the table she'd set, and the view of the ocean was definitely something else. There sure wasn't anything like this in Southeast D.C. "Let me do something to help," he said. "Good idea. You can chop vegetables and finish up the salad. Or you can cook on the grill." Sampson found himself smiling. "Not much of a choice there. I'll do the salad." "Nah, I'm kidding. I'd be happy to grill, just as long as I don't have to wear a hat or apron with a snappy slogan on it." She laughed. "Don't have any of those. You passed the CD player on your way from the kitchen. I left a bunch of CDs out. Pick what you like." "This a test?" he asked. Billy laughed again. "No, you already passed all your tests. That's why I asked you to supper. Stop worrying about me and you. We won't break. This is going to be fun. Better than you think." Chapter 55. She was right about the night being special. It embarrassed him, but he just about forgot Ellis Cooper for a few hours. Sampson was usually quiet unless he knew somebody pretty well. Part of it was shyness, because he'd always been so tall and stood out in every social group. but he was honest enough with himself to know he didn't want to